Well, if you can't tell, we are talking about the F1 movie on the Screen Love Affair podcast, which I did. I don't know if I sent it in our group chat or a different one, but where the meme was like this guy's dad thought it was called Brad Pitt the movie because it's like it says Brad Pitt in one font, the movie in the same font, but then it's just that wide F1 logo. So he
The
thought it was
F1's really
called
grayed out, yeah, in the
yeah,
middle,
he
and
thought it
yeah,
was
yeah.
Brad Pitt the movie, which fair enough title, but yeah, we both just
Dude, I
saw
wish
this
this was Brad
on
Pitt
the
the movie.
weekend. We both just saw it this weekend at the time of recording, and neither one of us had the most ideal experience at either a future or past episode, depending on when we publish. I had someone look for an Uber in the middle of the climax of the F1 movie. Very brightly, like not even like a discreet, like it was like she's like holding it up like she was making a beacon like bat signal for anyone else that needed an Uber. But your story definitely takes the cake. So why don't you tell everybody what happened at your screening of the F1 movie?
So, for those who are unfamiliar, Shay's usually the first person to shush somebody or tap them on the shoulder and just be like, hey, can you put your phone away? Like to varying degrees of sauciness, let's say. But me, I like on recent episodes, I've talked about, well, they're looking up a slow cooker recipe in the middle of a movie. Maybe it was a really time sensitive text to send their in-law. Like I'll give them a minute or two at full brightness in the middle row of the theater to check their slow cooker TikTok recipe. Sure. Sure. And that guy who thinks that's okay, hit my boiling point this week. Because yeah, there's 6 dudes, the quintessential F1 bros, out in force to see this movie. They all had the same haircut. They all wore polo shirts, tight pants, and like at least 2 of them had like either Adidas or like that like Ferrari type shoe or like a Puma Ferrari collab. You know the one. The outlet mall dads were out in force seeing this movie, the F1 movie. And I'm happy to see theaters doing well. And I'm not trying to gatekeep theaters, but a bunch of the dudes in front of me kept me on their phones. The guy at the start, closest to me, pulls his phone out right when the opening title crawl is happening and it's building momentum, and he's replying to his wife. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. Types, yeah, movie's starting to talk to you soon. Sends it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then he starts being like, oh, so gym on the weekend. And that's when I'm like, I kind of kicked his seat like a little bit. He looked at me like, oh, sorry, man. And he put his phone away. I'm like, oh, good. He got the message. I didn't have to, do anything. It was very, I'm not the guy. I look like the guy. I'm not the guy to start a fight in the middle of a movie theater. But an hour goes
You
by.
should be the guy.
I should be. I should be. I'm 6'4". I have a mullet. I look like I started fights in public. So, but I'm soft. I'm soft as 3-ply. So anyways, but, getting into this, experience, an hour goes in the movie, and indiscriminately, the other guy that was just a little bit out of reach is, he's on his phone, and it's the brightness is turned down, but he's still got his phone out, like, at shoulder, like, and I can see everything. And the first, like, 4 times he pulled it out, I was like, okay, you're just checking the time, just checking your notifications. I'm starting to get annoyed. But then I go to do like Master Yoda Shay, do or do not, there is no try. I'm like, I should say something now. I don't want to ruin my movie experience or his. I don't want to be that guy that gets like heated later. I gotta say something. He pulls out a baby monitor, like to show his child sleeping in a crib, and I'm like, oh, this is a toughie. I do notice because his phone's bright enough to see he's got a wedding band on, holding his phone with his baby, and I'm like, okay, well his wife's clearly at home. I'll give him a minute, look at the baby monitor, whatever. But then for the next hour, he just kept pulling it out and holding it open. Sometimes just checking notifications, sometimes checking his calendar. And surely enough, an hour in the middle of one of the amazing racing scenes in this movie, I leaned over and I tapped him. I said, put your phone away, man. Just put it away, please. And then and this is where Shay would be like, good, you did the very easy thing of confronting a stranger in the middle of a quiet movie. He does this. He turns fully around and he's holding eye contact with me. He's just staring at me like this. And I'm in front of him. And so I'm looking at him. I'm like, and at this point, I'm miming. I'm like, fucking put it away. Fucking put it away. Dude, put it away. And I'm whispering, put it away. Like, and then he's still holding this pose, looking at me. So then I lean back forward. I'm like, what's up, dude? What's up? And he goes, why don't you calm down? I'm like, just put your phone away. Do you have kids? Do you have kids? Is what he said to me. Do you have kids? And this is when I got to say, this guy was doing the Justin Bieber thing. That new meme where it's like, It's not clocking to you. I'm standing on business. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. You know, like the guy was hitting me with that, like as if because he had a kid at home, and I'm assuming a wife. I honestly was going to cut the guy slack if he ditched his newborn infant son or daughter in a crib to go see F1 opening night with his boys. I would almost like applaud him, like, you're right, bro. My bad. You're doing the movie industry a justice by abandoning your child. But the fact that it's like you probably have a wife at home and you're just bored because there is a lot of dialogue in this movie that is just throw it out the goddamn window, boring, unregistering, phone time. I get it, man. If you're an F1 fan and you're used to races that last hours on end where you can watch it at home with a Michelob Ultra, of course, yeah, you're going to come to a theater and think I can just be on my phone the whole damn time. But yeah, this dad who was standing on business, pulling his phone out to look at his kid. To be fair, after I confronted him, and I think he realized that he's 5'8" with a nice haircut is not going to stack up to me with my bad haircut and my massive size. He put it away.
You look like a guy with nothing to lose, buddy.
I had nothing to lose. I had a vodka Diet Coke in my left hand and a fist in my right, being like, "You put your phone away. You put your fucking phone." So, but anyways, the point of this point is the movie was largely enjoyable. Some great action scenes, like heart beating, great scenes. But my heart rate was through the roof because I was about to start a fight with 6 F1 bros that looked like they just what came from a golf course. Like, I was so perturbed. Truly, again, like. I didn't like a lot of this movie, but the parts that were great really did work for me. And unfortunately, I almost agree with the guy that was trying to start a fight with me over the logistics of, yeah, you're allowed to have your phone out all movie long to look at your kid in the crib. And it's like, I almost thought I should have said when he said, "Do you have kids at home?" I should have been like, "Yeah, I do. I pay a babysitter so I don't have to check my phone. Man up, you fucking idiot." You know, like... Anyways, I can't clip it because I swore too hard there. But anyways, that was my really terrible experience. Was I had just a group of dudes, and again, like if you are an F1 fan, you're probably used to hours of watching it on TV where you can just scroll your phone until something cool happens. But when you're going to a highly curated, highly entertaining movie, put your phone away. Just put it away. Like otherwise, yeah. Like I mean, I've waited. I think Bad Boys 4. A guy had his phone up playing blackjack in the front row of the theater the entire movie, 20 rows away from me. And at the end, I confronted him in the hall and just said, "Hey, man, like, you should put your phone away. That was really distracting." And he goes, "Oh, well, nobody said anything." I'm like, the standard rule is you don't do it. And he's like, "Well, thanks for informing me."
You need to reevaluate your order. The only time, and I even say this barely confident.
I feel like we're pro wrestlers right now being like, "The only time, brother.
The only time. Listen here, brother. The only time you..."
Ladies and gentlemen, Shea has nuked his system for the bit.
So I cut a promo so hard on bad theater etiquette that we nuked the podcast recording, but we're back and I'm picking up right where I left off, okay? You cannot give an inch to people at the movies when it comes to talking or their phone, okay? The only time I find it even remotely acceptable is the moment you walk into the theater and like, or the movie's just starting and you're like, quick, you shut the phone off or whatever, you put that shit away. By the time I see a studio credit, it's fucking fair game, okay? Even people checking the times, grow up. Fuck off. You knew you were here for 2.5 hours plus 30 minutes of fucking trailers. No. Just, you have to nip it in the bud because people that do this once see no problem doing it twice, doing it 3 times. And just like to build off your bit, I couldn't see it for a lot of it. I know it really distracted Kelsey, who had a direct line of sight on this, but like sometimes I could see it over the seat because she would lift it high up. She was
like
looking
she's trying
at
to find
Ubers.
Service. Like
yeah. Like,
which side of the building am I on? Yeah.
Half the time I couldn't see it because it was blocked by the corner of the seat in front of me. But then, like, again, she would exceed the height of that seat, so it would blare over, and I would see. And like, sometimes I noticed Kelsey react, and I'd peek over. But like, I straight up threw a sweat rag out of bitch, dude. I don't give a shit. And I was so pissed. And the best part was I threw it at her. By the way, perfect toss. I like balled it together in such a perfect way that I just was like, whoop. And I hit off the side of the face right on the phone. I couldn't have asked for a better toss. And everyone, like a bunch of people around us, including the people I threw the thing over top of, saw me do it and knew it was me. And when the girl got up at the end, was like, looking around, no one ratted me out. And this was a reassurance. Like, hey, I really kind of wanted the confrontation, but I didn't want to like have one with other people like around. So I was like, I didn't want to make them feel weirded out. But like straight up, the fact that nobody even pointed at me or gave her any indication who it was, because I straight up leaned over, like anyone in the area knew that that was me that did that,
Yeah,
and
when you
no
yelled
one ratted
Kobe
me
and
out.
you
Yeah,
and you hucked it,
Kobe, like,
everyone was like, "I said Kobe." No, I said
yeah,
Kobe, and they all like,
I'm Spartacus.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, we had our own I'm Spartacus moment, but like literally,
nice.
dude, nobody said anything, and this girl just walked out. But I was like, just straight up the whole time, texting, checking time, opening apps, looking for an Uber, like, and didn't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
take it. I'm like, oh, are you leaving? Thank God.
Also,
Didn't even leave.
the irony of trying to find a professional driver in a movie about a guy trying to find a professional driver is a little bit jarring. Like when I saw Bring Her Back, and there's a critical plot about the guy not being able to shower due to being traumatized, and the 5 dudes behind me who reek like BO. I was like, this thematic turmoil is reflected in my theater experience. It is important you have a pure theater experience. And shout out one time to my American cousins who I was visiting. They're talking about how much they love the Alamo Draft House, and they are like, they make it very clear. It's like if somebody has to address something one time, like that's it, you know. And I think that's fair. And to be fair, like I've been drunk in theaters. I've been a 15-year-old in theaters. I've been all the bad theater goers at one point. But yeah, it's like I've had somebody say, "Shut the fuck up." And I'd be so embarrassed that I would get it. And it's ironic that I feel like the girl in your theater and the dad in my theater experience are our age. They should know better. I would assume they're probably 30 to 45. They grew up in the same time where when somebody in public talks to you, you got to respect it. You can't just be like, there's a viral video right now of a kid in a Tim Hortons getting beat up for throwing stuff at an old man's wife. And it's like,
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. It's like, these Gen Z gotta learn. I think that they're actually probably more socially anxious enough to learn their lesson and pipe down. But for whatever reason, it's people our age that are so problematic. We're turning into boomers in front of us. Like my guy being like, I'm a father. I got to look at my kid baby monitor on full brightness on my fucking armrest all movie long in the middle of a cinematically exciting movie. It's like, dude, I get it. When they're talking about, the past and trauma in life, and it's really just gobble up crap. I get wanting to check your phone, but respectfully, put it away. But when it's in the height of the best action scenes and you're still being there, like, what's little Theodore up to?
No, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like, I refuse to accept your caveat. There is no point in a movie, I don't give a fuck if it's the worst movie ever made, that you bust out a phone. And it's not like, I get why you have the instinct.
I empathize.
Like,
I'm not saying do it.
I don't even
empathize.
empathize. I get the instinct of like, I'm bored and look at phone. That's what we all do. However, don't be a selfish piece of shit and recognize that maybe some of the other people around you aren't having a shitty time and don't want to see your phone. So like, don't ruin it for everybody else. Like, it's so black and white. And I want to say Cineplex, finally, I got a French PSA. It was not the Tommy Texter ones. And the dumbest part is they fucking played it like 15 minutes before the movie started. So most people aren't even in there yet. It's like,
and the people that are there
even...
are already respectful.
Yes,
You're playing
exactly.
it for the wrong crowd.
Exactly. You got to play it right before the movie starts. And I saw Escape from New York at Cinema du Parc. They literally flash a thing right before the movie starts. They show you the trailers. They show you everything. And then the title card thing comes up with all the PSAs. So it's like, just do that. But I mean, at least we got one thing. Now, hopefully they move the needle and start getting it a little cleaner. But
even if like they got creative with it, right?
God.
And they said like, if you're not reading this warning about cell phones, it's because you're on your phone. Please get off your phone. Like they could be like a bumper sticker level. Like throw a bumper sticker on the door, like please sparingly check your phone, or walk out. Again, I know you're about to go back to me saying
No,
sparingly
no,
is
no,
still too
no,
much,
not
but
even that.
yeah.
But like the thing I don't know. I feel like this has happened with you here. I don't know if this happens in the Toronto theater. A lot of the time before a movie starts, especially on like an opening weekend and whatever, they have a manager or somebody like right before the feature presentation be like, "Thanks for coming. Have a great time."
Yeah. I've had that
What?
twice in
Okay,
Toronto
yeah, and like I
at the
said, I could
good
have
theaters.
swore
The
at
good
least one
theaters.
of them happened. Yeah, here, but like fucking say it then, dude. Like, hey guys, make sure you have a good time and stay off your phones and enjoy the movie. Bam,
Now I hate
done.
to be an elitist. I hate to be an elitist because I love that we're avoiding the movie so much, talking about the quality of our experience. Because truly, it did tank the experience for me a bit. Because again, I was so preoccupied with the social anxiety of talking to a stranger and telling them how to behave. I am such a libertarian, as you could tell, that it's like me telling someone how to live their life is against my core values. But when you're impeding my freedoms to enjoy a movie and 20 other people
That's
in middle row
literally it.
IMAX, I had to be the brother that put my cap forward and said, "Dude, can you please get off your phone?" And when he gave me the attitude, I had to channel you. I had to be like, "Go outside, and I'll meet you there. I'll see this. I'll pay to see this movie twice." And I'll beat your ass and go to jail. Come back out. Like, I'm so sick, especially like, oh, because you're a dad. Sorry, you made some bad choices, pal. I made
Dude,
a good
no
choice.
dad has actually ever gone to the movie theater before because of that
Yeah,
reason.
because
Because they can't look at their baby monitor.
dude,
No fathers ever
my
go to the
my dad in
cinema.
the '90s, he took
Crazy.
a tin can and he drug it to the theater with a string on it
Yeah, with the
because
little
phones weren't
string.
that good. Yeah. So he's the first ever dad to ever use a baby monitor app live in the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but no, I do
Everyone's the
agree
main
with you,
character of their own story. But I
dude.
was proud of you. You came out, you went to the bathroom, and you
Yeah,
texted me in between, and I said to you,
you're like, stay strong,
I
brother.
don't
Say some
remember, but
shit.
no, I like said, I was like, deal with it. I don't remember what I
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
but I was like, handle your business, bro.
yeah,
Handle it because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not worth ruining your whole experience for.
And to be fair,
That's for sure.
there's a certain point to people who don't go to the theaters but listen to movie podcasts. I know they exist. Like I kind of respect it, like living vicariously through us, and I'm honored you choose us to be those guys if you are one of those people. But yeah, there's a certain point, like a point of no return, where it's already absorbed maybe 5 minutes of screen time of your brain thinking about it. And me being a coward, a soft as three ply type guy, I waited almost an hour to finally like tap the guy on the shoulder because his buddy, after 2 or 3 moments of full brightness, I just kicked his chair, and when he turned over, I said, "Sorry, man, I just and he immediately got it because he's not a Luddite, but the father, who was probably some like very Serbian old school old world guy, who was like, "What? I check. Are you a father?" Like, yeah, I'm shouting out Serbians. I think I can make fun of Serbians still. Anyways, but yeah. So, anyways, I do want to talk about the movie at some point, but on
Yeah,
that
we'll get
same
into
note,
it next. I did say I found my text. I said, "Dude, go ape shit," is what I said.
yeah,
That's what
you
I
did say that.
texted you.
Yeah,
So,
well, to be fair, we went so apeshit we crashed the podcast twice between peaking audio levels
yeah,
and the bit. But on that note, when you said, "Oh, I texted you in the bathroom," there was a moment, and this is how we're going to start this because I know Shay's going to just like absolutely pepper this with compliments for the next hour. But there's a few moments in this movie where I couldn't have cared less, and I at one point was like, "This feels like a good time to go to the bathroom," just because it was just like it was this expositional scene with a lot of like, I know what they're going to say, I know how it's going to play out when they're in a hospital. Again, I'm not spoiling anything. You could probably assume this is going to happen when they're in a medical situation and they're in a hospital and it's very low stakes and somebody has to talk about how they feel. Gonna go to the bathroom, and guess what? And 30 minutes later, that conversation is undone with a big expositional, "Hey mom, turns out," and they say the thing that they just didn't say the first time. Like, it was, so for me, love the movie. I think Brad Pitt and the opening, like I'd say first act, and absolutely all the racing scenes, even the racing scene flashbacks and stuff, very enjoyable, very well done. I'm happy movies like this are getting made, but I do feel like streaming quality dialogue, second screen quality dialogue, where you just want to check your phone, is all the dialogue scenes, barring a few. In fact, I'd say there's one scene in it that is as bad as Superman versus Batman. And you know the one, Shay, if you're a smart character. And if you don't, I'll save that for the spoiler half of the movie.
well, I
So,
think I have a guess, but yeah, I don't want to say it either because is it right
it,
near the end?
No, it's when they're gambling. Do you remember that scene where they're
Oh,
gambling?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I got
I
you.
didn't realize you meant that
That
literal.
scene.
Yeah.
Two characters.
Okay.
Two characters. I won't spoil it, but two characters who don't
Yeah.
agree and come from polar opposite ends, Superman and Batman v Superman, are fighting to the death and always at each other's throats. And when they're at a certain critical moment, they both say a thing related to their parents that matches up word for word at the same time.
Well, you're
they
giving
go,
it away. If it's
"Oh."
Batman and Superman, they know what it means.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like it's.
Well,
it's honestly, it's not a spoiler or
for
like
for the fans at home.
big
Their
bit.
moms are not named Martha. For those who don't know what we're talking
that's
about,
true.
Batman versus Superman. Batman's about to kill Superman, and he goes Martha, and then Bruce Wayne goes, "Why'd you say that name? My mom's named Martha," and he goes, "My mom's also Martha." And 5 minutes of screen time later, they're best friends. So that's how I spoiled this movie.
You're getting to where I think.
I'm getting lost. I want you to go.
Defer. No.
Yeah.
I don't think you're wrong, but what I think is there is a gap in like execution on things. I will say I think I gave this a 4 on Letterboxd. I would say I really liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I'm kind of in between, but like straight up, like as a whole, I loved it as an IMAX theater experience.
100%.
So for that reason, I would say for sure. Again, if you're just like rewatching this at home or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, it's not the same effect, but yes, like to not get into any spoilers on this part yet, but like the bit that you're kind of talking about and the difference between this is I'm really curious to watch this with my brother because
Oh yeah, Ty's got a great sense for stuff like that.
well, but so there was and what I'll make my kind of high level claim and then I'll get into the details of it. I think the fine line between what you're calling out right now, succeeding and failing, is a razor thin. And you can do the same dialogue and all that and the same bits and the same themes and you can be trying to elicit the same feeling, but if you execute it shitty, it falls into the camp of like the Batman v Superman being like a wildly terrible execution. And then this one, like, I feel like is a much less bad version. It's still the exact same like beat point, but it's not as bad. Like it's not as like it's not going to be memed for example to death like the other one was. And I think because it's that glaringly bad versus not as bad, but the fine line between something like this and Top Gun Maverick is massively interesting to me, and I probably need to watch it again. Like I said, I want to take Ty for that reason. But when we watched Top Gun Maverick and you and I had the same experience together, you and I watched that movie and we feel, except for like one moment, at least on the last time we watched it at 4:30 in the morning, we feel all of the emotional bits. When we
100%.
We got goosebumps at Dark Star, like all of these bits of like the sacrifice, like every emotional beat that movie wants you to feel. You and I feel that, except maybe one we giggled at, but Ty laughed his way through all of them, and I found in this movie I laughed my way through all of them because I didn't get to that. It didn't notch it up, and this is what sets something like Top Gun Maverick apart from this. Like, they're trying to do the same thing in terms of big blockbuster action. Action's a weird, but like, you know, big kind of set piece stuff. And one of them like overwhelmingly succeeds at that in Top Gun to the point that it's like one of my favorite movies ever. And this one just feels like it's reaching for the same bits, the same points, the same high marks. And it's very like, even in terms of it's an old Maverick-esque lead character and whatever that didn't, you know, ever hit the highs that they could and all this kind of stuff. Like there's so many kind of beat similarities. But where this movie didn't work as well for me was on the execution of any of them. And I really think this is because I was super nervous with this Top Gun Maverick being one of my favorite things. I wasn't sure how much of the success of Top Gun Maverick had to do with Joe Kosinski, the director, because I like obviously when you're making a movie with Tom Cruise is
Yeah.
a producer, director, actor, whatever else that man's doing. But Chris McQuarrie as well was a producer, was in the editing room for Top Gun Maverick, and so I feel like I've detected the sensibilities where even in something like Mission earlier this year, where I would say I think. I would recommend F1 over Mission as a movie, the most recent Mission.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
because of the
definitely.
spectacle, it was just more in that range, and I felt like just worked better as a
It's an
singular
easy entry
movie.
level to this kind
Yeah.
of movie that, which I'm glad to see emerge. Like, it's a very old school movie. It's very feels like old, and then Brad Pitt's
Yes.
an old school actor. He brings the sauce, the gravitas. He is one of the stronger parts of this. And I wanted to kind of cut you off a bit because I think we're diving straight into like the big feels, and I guess that's the point. But I think why Top Gun works, Maverick specifically, is because it's a bit of the franchise-itis as far as like it's rebooting something and it brings some expectations from the previous movie where you're like, how are they going to tie it in? How are they going to wrap? And it does it very tastefully, you know. But I think Miles Teller is just a far more engaging supporting actor, you know, in that movie. I
Yes.
found Damson Idris is the guy that plays like the young, less likable F1 racer. And every scene with him, I just was like, am I supposed to be a teenage UK wannabe drill rapper who really loves F1? Like, am I not European enough to like him? Because this movie, my hot take is this is a reverse Talladega Nights. It is a movie that involves doing a slingshot shake and bake at some point or many points. It is a movie where the bad guy because in Talladega Nights he's F1 and he comes to NASCAR. It's the inverse. The protagonist comes from NASCAR to F1. Um, and yeah, I found the supporting actor, the younger kid, he didn't have much going on. His arc was really flat, and Brad Pitt's arc was non-existent as well, which is similar to the Top Gun thing, but they had more to play with and more like backstory and lore from a previous entry and time past. I really believe Tom Cruise's uh, Maverick character lived like 20 years of resentment for maybe what he did to Miles Teller's character, to Rooster after Goose passed. Like, I really believed they had that built into his character and his lore. Like, because I felt it. The acting and the story and the time and the previous setup helped a lot. Where this movie, I don't ever get the feeling that Brad Pitt lost his mojo. Like, they do these like montages where they're like, so you lost it all? Yes. So you did? Yes. And it's funny, but also I'm like, this guy's sick. This guy's so sick. His van's sick. He's got these designer shades. He's got multiple Talladega watches. His life is
Uh,
actually sick as hell. I don't believe he lost it all one time. In fact, later in the movie, the only spoiler of this movie, and I'm just going to get it out of the gate, is that Brad Pitt wins at the end of the day. He saves the day. He wins at the end of the movie. That's the spoil, and you expect it based on it being like his movie. Um, but you know what
I
I mean?
wouldn't say that I expected it.
You can see it
I
coming. It's not like you don't expect it. You're like, he better win. You're kind of like, well, if he wins, that would be kind of nice. But you know what I mean? There's no real spoilers. The experience is watching it. It's watching the
yes.
palpable F1 scenes. And again, I think every scene with Brad Pitt when he's the old school veteran and all that, but his character arc is really not there. He's like, I'm the best ever. I'm deaf in one ear and like crippled. You find out at the end, like, I don't believe you were crippled that bad, Brad Pitt. Even though the flashback montage, like the thing that they show of him wiping out in his early days, is gruesome. My friend and I, who watch a lot of like anime or cartoons, always say when you see a character animated with their like leg behind their head or their arm back like this as they're face down, they're dead. And he was hitting the dead character pose, like he was so contorted and messed up.
Yeah.
It does a lot right, but I think when you compare this to like a Maverick, I don't know if it's so much the direction or if it's just that this movie didn't have time to ferment. I believe Brad Pitt is as good as he is in this universe, but I just don't believe he was ever down on his luck. Same thing with Maverick. He was never really down on his luck, but I do feel like he was plagued by the guilt set up in the first movie 20, 30, 40 years ago. So
Well, but
it's a little tricky
see,
to compare
I
apples to oranges
disagree
here.
with no, I think no, I disagree with that. I think these are much more similar. Like, yeah, sure, there's things to draw on, but the emotional beat you're talking about is completely made up in this movie. In
Yeah.
Maverick. It no no
Yeah.
no like in Maverick, the
Oh,
tension between Rooster and him is totally in this movie. It has nothing to do with the previous film.
So
Like it's
so I
not set up that way at all. So you
no
still
no
like the
but
movie still has to establish it, make sense of it, and then it's up to the, the writing and the performances to get it over.
you're not wrong, but I wouldn't say it's like out of nowhere. I think it's better written because Rooster hates Tom Cruise. He hates Mav. He hates Mav on site,
Right.
and you, the audience, wonder kind of why. And it spells it out in a very appropriate manner. It's not rocket scientists. It's not like this Oscar-winning screenplay, but I think it's just better done. It services everything better because it's smarter about how it chooses to
Right.
reveal that. Where in this movie, it's more a movie about a toxic workplace culture. It's people that live by the numbers and die by the numbers. They don't have experienced people in the right positions. If I worked in the corporate world, I'd say this is a better allegory for bad corporation management. The antagonist is an investor. It's poorly managed. And the kid who's supposed to be the leader of the team, the race car driver, doesn't have enough experience to uplift people the way Cliff Booth, aka Sonny, what's his name?
Sonny Hayes.
Sonny Hayes. Sonny, great NASCAR name. Anyways, but yeah,
Well, no, but like,
yeah,
because your point with that, like, that you were trying to make was like, well, it was easier for Maverick because it had a previous movie to build on. But
not easier, but more organic. This feels a little bit more
but
forced.
even, well, but it's, again, it's again, totally, it's not like Rooster was mad at Maverick because his dad died in a training accident with him.
He's mad he held him back.
Exactly, but that was only ever brought up in the sequel. So again, what I'm trying to get at though is you can still do that. It's not easier, and in many ways it's harder because you're like, how do we based on the events of a previous thing, how do we make this work emotionally? In F1, the world was their oyster. They could have done whatever they wanted to give us that emotional kind of connection, and it never works. And I think the cast, by and large, I've seen split people on Brad Pitt. I thought he was fine. I liked him in this role.
He's my favorite part. Yeah, he's my favorite
well,
part.
Carrie Condon was my favorite. I thought she's phenomenal. Like again, her utility in the plot is a little different, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I thought she's just so fucking good, and she was in Banshees of Inisherin and
Oh,
Better
that's what
Call
she's
Saul.
from. Yeah,
And
Okay,
she's
okay.
like absolutely like next level. And again, like her character isn't my favorite or anything, but again, like frankly, Brad Pitt's the only character that I liked in the movie, and I think this is kind of the problem is that
Liked
the
watching.
kind of
Yeah.
supporting characters around them, like Javier Bardem is like good, like he's fine, like it's not
Serviceable.
he's not
They're all
bad, and it's
serviceable.
but it's not his performance, like it's really more of the writing. Like he doesn't elevate the basic shit he's given, but it's basic shit that he's given to deal with. And I feel like when you think of the cast of characters around in Top Gun Maverick, like it's a lot of different people that maybe you don't remember their names necessarily, but like John Hamm and Hangman and like all of the extra pilots are all great. Bob,
Yeah.
like
Well,
Monica Ferrera, like all of those people come
yeah.
together and they all work. And this movie, I feel like basically the thing that holds it back is the screenplay just isn't as solid as it is in Top Gun. The stakes are like, they feel less like important, like, and it's not even the sense of like, oh, it's like in Top Gun they're doing a global threat thing. It's like, no, the stakes are personal. It's between Maverick and Rooster and our connection to them. And
Yes.
you don't find,
I don't think we disagree. I think we agree a lot.
yeah,
I
you
think
don't
my
find
verbiage
that
was just off.
connection. You don't find that connection with any character in this movie, I found. And
No,
so like when I'm
circumstantially,
like, oh,
too.
Brad Pitt's a cool dude, and like I like the way he's doing it, but I didn't really care.
No.
So then, like, when that scene happens, and see the scene I thought you were mentioning, I didn't realize how precise you were being in your Batman v Superman.
It's eerie
call-out.
how similar it is,
Oh,
though,
it is.
right?
As soon as you said that, I was like, oh, shit, yeah.
Dude,
But,
it's
like,
on the money.
The beat I was thinking of was the very end when it's, like, going silent.
Okay.
And she's like, he's flying. And I fucking was like, ah! Like, I can't wait to watch that with Ty because he's gonna lose his fucking mind. Like in
Yeah.
all of those beats, like if you, because honestly, that sequence in terms of like how I think I'm supposed to feel is like almost closer to the Dark Star sequence than the end of Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
And like you're supposed to feel chills and inspired and in awe and all this, and I was just like, when they said like it just didn't land.
I
And
do want to jump on that point because I think you and
go
I
ahead.
agree, and I did want to say earlier about the rooster thing. There's so many active choices in Top Gun that even though, because people talk about like the ballerina and John Wick, it's like, well, John Wick was never meant to be that story driven. It's like, yeah, but what it did have, like, was
Made me
complementary to the
care.
set pieces. Yeah, and like you said, it elicits more in like a 2 minute scene than ballerina does in a 10 minute scene. And same thing here. It's a lot of the same DNA. They're cousins, like as far as I'm concerned. Like, but whatever the DNA swap on there was it became a Hallmark movie or a parody like a Talladega Nights when it's like, they're in the hospital and it's like the mom's like, that bad man Brad Pitt made you do that thing. And that was when I went to the bathroom. I'm like, and then when I came back and everything, like 20 minutes later, he goes, Mama, it wasn't sorry, no, he wasn't Southern, but he goes, Mom, oi, mate, Mom, it wasn't Brad Pitt. It was me. I did the turn. And she goes, what? And I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, so, but my point is, I'm derailing. I really want to zero in Top Gun when Tom Cruise sacrifices himself. He takes the missile because Rooster fucked up, and Rooster comes back for him, and Tom pushes him. He's like, why'd you come back for me?
Yeah.
Like, he's mad. He's like, I gave everything for you. He's like, you hate me. It climaxes there, emotionally at least. And I got chills thinking about it. That whole movie gives me chills all the time.
That's so funny that you see that as such an
I
emotional
love
beat, 'cause
that
it's
movie,
so
dude.
funny to me. Oh, I do too, but
Yeah,
that
yeah.
beat is played for last. He pushes over and then he's like, what were you even thinking? He's like,
Yeah.
you told me not to think. And then it's
Yeah,
like,
you told me not to. Yeah, dude.
play for the
And again,
laughs.
but again, like the levity, because you either laugh at it, it's like you told me not to think, or because it does eventually boil down into like their big conversation as to like why he stunted him. It wasn't out of like his inability to deal with Goose. I don't get lost in the Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
I will.
yeah.
But I just think in this movie, like this scene that's behind me on the screen, when they're arguing in the hallway, like they do have an argument where he pushes him in the hallway and he's like, you want to throw shit away for fun? And then he's just like, he's a smug cunt the whole movie. The supporting guy, the younger driver, I forget his name even.
The young cocky upstart.
Yeah, the whole time he's kind of like, fuck you, bruv. I'm gonna be great, and then it's like at the end when the business,
like his whole plot is like, by the way, no one's gonna hire you if this team doesn't well. Like,
yeah,
he doesn't seem like a good guy, like racer.
Yeah. By the end, when the businessman's like, "Hey, Brad Pitt, do you want like a really steady, cushy job, and like, do you want to like essentially ride into the sunset on a nice board and like be a good, like just chill, basically. You want some reward for siding with me." And then Brad Pitt's like, never mind, I'm going to be the best driver and throw away this financial whirlwind I could be up on. Part of me was like, dude, take it. Javier Bardem has like cussed you out several times, calling you a wash. And then the kid, the Idris kid is just like, the whole time, he never really becomes endearing or funny. There's never that Rooster moment where he kind of comes back for him, because even though Rooster couldn't articulate it, when he's like, you told me not to, I just, it's like, there's never that moment where he does something where you're like, and you could argue at the end when he's like, my tires are shot, you do it. The whole movie focuses on tires and all that. I'm not an F1 guy. I'm clearly dressed more NASCAR coded, but the the idea here is like, the end when he's like, you take the win. I need, I'll distract the other well established, was it something Hamilton, Mark Hamilton? Anyways, he's
Lewis
like,
Hamilton.
Lewis Hamilton. I'll race Lewis Hamilton in the corner. You slingshot yourself and get the win. They do the shake and bake from Talladega Nights. It's like there's so much of this movie that's explained logistically, which I appreciate as a non F1 guy. You can follow along, but that ending scene, if that was supposed to be him accepting Brad Pitt as more of a mentor figure, because they hint at that they both have daddy issues, so it's hard for him to listen to an older man who knows what he's doing, because it evokes this thing. That's me thinking too much. They never do it that much like justice. It felt like there was never that moment where he comes back for him. He cares, sticks his neck out for him. I think they're even in the hospital when Javier Bardem's like laying into him, being like, "You're too old, let go." And he sets down his gift basket and walks away. He didn't bust in the room being like, I'm the problem. You put a lot on me and I wasn't ready, but like give him one more, like that could have been the moment where he stuck his neck out and he didn't. And in the end, again, Cliff Booth is what I'll call him, instead of Sonny Hayes. He's just
Sonny is
always
a great
right.
name, bro.
He such great
Yeah.
names, both of them, but he's just always right. He tells the aerodynamics lady how to build a better car, and she's like the leading research person, and she does. She makes a more aggressive
All
car,
right, hold
and
on. You're gaslighting. You're gaslighting.
okay,
He tells her not a better car for what they need. She's just trying to get top speed done,
mm.
and that's like the difference. So he's like, no, we're not competing in straightaways. We got to beat them on the turns. So you got to add like
Yeah.
her job is to get top speed higher. He's saying, no, we don't need more top speed. We need better speed in the corners.
Well, he's
So
also
then
like,
it's like, let's add the fin and
and he also like he has a good point because when he even comes in, it was when she was like, "How does it handle in the curves?" And then the young kid's like,
yeah.
"I don't fucking know, bruv. I did the simulation, yeah." He's fucking running with his Apple VR goggles on, and he doesn't know how to feel a car. Meanwhile, Cliff Booth is out there wrecking 2 cars every 5 races, and he's like, "Sloppy in the corner. You gotta change the rear diff, bro." Like he's him. Again, I love all that stuff. I know it sounds like I'm chirping it, but yeah, he's just kind of like
I liked it a lot too.
if he was a female character, if Brad Pitt was a woman, they call him a Mary Sue. Like he's good at everything.
Well,
I
but
do like that, but he doesn't change much. He's just the goat all the way through. The plot twist is he was never faulted at all. He was always just a good guy. When was he a bad guy? When it was contrived that he made the wrong call.
problem, though, I think with this is that like
Mhm.
you keep kind of like in the contrast. And first of all, it's also I feel like it's worth addressing for the both of us is like we're not just talking about Top Gun Maverick because it's Joseph Kosinski's movie. It is like jarringly apparent like how similar in terms of like spiritual like what these movies are and are trying to be. They're so similar that way.
Action
And
star
so
pieces, like they're
right, and so
phenomenal
like
at
it's
both.
an old school, big budget Hollywood blockbuster
Mhm.
is what they're
And
trying to
people
be.
doing real
And so we're
stunts.
only really calling it back to the one that is there, but like you keep talking about the young guy and comparing him to Rooster, and I feel like the problem with the movie is that
Rooster's
both
just too good.
characters are Hangman in Top Gun.
Oh,
Like
god damn you. Yeah, so
right?
I
Like
love Hangman. He's my favorite part of Maverick, which is really
oh,
funny. And
me
that
too.
I think you
But
nailed me at the cross with that.
But
That's
like that's like well, it's not that you did anything wrong. It's the problem with the movie is that like we need to care in a more meaningful
yes.
way about somebody. And again, this is where I think the script, the Cruise, the McQuarrie difference is that Cruise like understands that on like a base level where Rooster is like always likable and like his problem is he's too safe and he cares too much about other people, right? Like
He's not the Hangman. Yeah, you're right.
it's
You're
an easy
right.
bit, and then Hangman is the cocky, plucky upstart.
And Maverick sees that and is like, I'm not going to make another me. I need
right,
better than me.
exactly.
I'm going to invest in this kid.
The weird conflict with the two main characters in this movie is that they're sort of one and the same, and they're like at different stages, and one's like young and cocky and the other's old and cocky, but like and yes, like Brad Pitt's character is like frequently established as like more correct and is the way he's doing it is the right way, it's working, you know, that kind of thing. But it's you still kind of at the core have a movie where like none of these characters become especially likable, and I think that's the one criticism that I do agree with on Pitt's performance is like if Pitt was just like the Hangman of this movie in the same way like you and I said, like Glenn Powell catapulted to being one of my favorite actors in that movie because of that role, how much I loved that character even though he was a dick. And in this one, I really like Brad Pitt's character as a dick, but I don't care. And even in Maverick, or like in the original Top Gun, like he's a dick, but you care. And that's where the movie, like, again, this climax happens and I'm not invested. And also like the downside of like something again, like of with this is that the stakes, if you don't care, you're not invested. It's such a weird moment where I feel like the movie wants us to feel like they share this victory, and it's so weird for me to be like like I'm supposed to feel joy for Brad Pitt, whose character also, by the way, like immediately doesn't care about the fact that that just happened, which is true to the
Yeah.
character.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
works, but
He
like
doesn't want the watch at Talladega.
he's
He doesn't
unmoved.
want the photo shoot at the end.
Right.
He's like,
The
I'm out.
only moment he
I'm off to
cares about is
Baja.
when he's flying, right? Which was great. Like I love that, except for the added line I didn't need. But that is all he was after, and that worked for me. But as an audience member, I'm not having that experience. So I'm like, I don't feel like happy and like super excited. Again, tense scene, great scene. I did feel good. It was so fucking cool to see that. But in terms of my emotional level, my emotional investment, it never brought me up there. So I was like, oh, cool things going on with cool, confident guys. Oh, great. But that's what I think brings it, like, prevents it from hitting that love stratosphere for me.
I do fully agree, and I have a really hot take, but I'm going to agree with you there. Like when when they're both the hangman, they're both the maverick, they're both the young buck. It's basically if you said Maverick took hangman instead of Rooster, he took another one of him on a mission. That's how the movie would have turned out, where it's like maybe they do the mission, but the heart's missing, and I do
Well, they
think
die or something, like, or
yeah, well,
like
maybe
don't
they're
make
both,
it because that's the
well, maybe one of them
difference.
dies. You know what I mean? Because in
Yeah.
this movie, it really did kind of feel like it was almost sacrificial. Maybe that's also, and this is what I'm going to segue away from too. I think when you have fighter jets, it really limits what people know about them and the Hollywood magic you could fit in around it. But when it comes to
Okay.
F1, something that people watch for hours, it is like very deeply entrenched in like a fandom. Like I know military people that love their fighter jets and go to the air shows, but every military, fighter jet fan doesn't know how to fly one. I'm not saying everyone knows how to drive F1, but for the same reasons that you talked about earlier, when the thing that I enjoyed was when they're like, oh, he's flying, and how he talks about how he only cares about running the track when he feels free. That is the Fast and Furious cornerstone of the quarter mile, where he's like, well, it's just him in that road. That's the only time he feels truly free after having a criminal record and losing it all. And you know what I mean? So I think this actually does ride the back a little bit of that early Fast and Furious kind of driving his freedom. But technically speaking, so many people love F1. This movie had to be a lot more accurate to the F1 community, I guess, in my opinion. I would, because it does feel very technical, and I think they nail it from what I know as a not fan. But I don't know fighter jets, and I think most fighter jets enthusiasts don't know fighter jets that much. And so I think this movie being so true to the F1 like reality, if there was a moment where it was like, oh shoot, he's pulling away from me, or oh shoot, I hit this, it is such a split second real life, like you could lose a lap by, milliseconds. And they even show that at the start, his intro, he's doing 1 second less or like half a second less than the young buck kid. And they're like, see, bro, isn't he terrible? And I'm like, bro, he just hopped in an F1 car off the airport. He got off the airport, hopped in an F1 for the first time in 20 years, and he is 0.5 seconds from your lap record. So I don't think that's that bad. But in this movie, they make it painfully clear half a second is a lifetime. So I think like there isn't a lot of cinematic room to be like, oh, he's getting the lead. Get him, Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? Or in Top Gun, it's like the MiGs are on us, and they do a Hollywood edit or a move. Where here, I don't think they had the same leeway. And again, I think we said comparing apples and oranges, but comparing F1 to fighter jets, I think the mystique of a fighter jet in that scenario is a little bit less scrutinizable. So they had a little bit more leeway to kind of fit in the Hollywood magic that we maybe needed for some beats in the heat of the moment to work. That might not be applicable, but I think that's pretty on the nose.
To defend this movie a little bit on that part is I
was defending the movie with that take, by the way. That was me saying they were being lore accurate to F1, so they couldn't fit in Hollywood BS to make it better for me, the movie guy.
Well, see, I don't know that sounds like a nuanced point of view, not exactly a positive or a negative one. But I think like the thing, like if you remember, like again, I just keep banging this drum, but I really want to dive into this. But the thing with Maverick is that like most of the movie is not, they're only in really one actual fight.
Yeah.
And like it's over pretty fucking quick. you know, and it's really at the end. Other times it's training and or just even the bombing run is intense on its own
Yeah.
before, you know, like a shootout happens. But in this one, I feel like how it impacted me is watching it was I didn't, and I don't know again, like I'm not an F1 guy at all. I don't like cars at all. Like when I got my first ever car, I was like, does it have a push start? Like that's what I cared about when I bought a car. So I don't know any of those details. Well, if I looked like you had said that, what a wild bit that would have been. Eh?
To be fair, you're
But
the sports fan, and I look like I should play hockey and know it inside and out.
yeah,
And
I love
truthfully,
yeah.
I'm
I'm
a
a sport
playoffs
fan.
only
I'm
guy.
pretty much a hockey
Yeah.
purist, but
As a
no,
straight guy in your 30s, you gotta love cars, hockey, or sports.
yeah,
And I
football.
don't know. That's
No,
that's really it.
but to keep me on track here, I think the
Yeah.
thing with this that it does well is that I never viewed until the end like finishing first didn't matter, but I was still getting those beats of like what you were saying is like every race is basically like a lap, right? It's not
Yeah.
the race. Every race is a lap. So when you're seeing that progress, I feel like the movie really builds those moments perfectly because it's like, oh, all this like because in most movies it would be like halfway through the movie they start finishing first,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
never happens
Well, kind of.
until like the very end of the movie. Because well, but right, a shittier movie would have been like when the guy gets injured, Brad Pitt comes in and they start winning, and then you know the kid comes back and then they start losing again, and then how do we get back to winning? The movie never gives us that win, and I think that's really brilliant because it builds every kind of step. So like every race I didn't feel like it was like shooting me up in energy. I felt like every sequence was casually building until it kind of hits that fever point in the last race.
I would agree mostly. Like, I am being really critical. Like I said, I had a bad experience. I'm projecting a little. My rating was a 3.5. And that's largely because I actually talked to an F1 fan after the movie, and he was like, this is some of the best F1 like in a movie theater experience you could have. But he's like, the story as a not movie guy, he's like, I didn't like it. I didn't care that much. I'm like,
Mm.
well, hey, I'm a movie guy and I didn't care either. So, but the point, I guess, what I want to get into there is when we were discussing the podcast and what to talk about and what to call it, we were going to call it like backseat cinephiles. And we were talking about like what we, would do differently. What could have been better. And obviously we're not Hollywood people, but I do feel like we've seen enough really good Hollywood products. I'll call them products. That I do feel like, when the kid comes back in, Joshua Pierce, is his name. I had to Google it in between rants. Joshua Pierce comes back in after his injury, which I felt was really hammed up and like whatever. Also, the scene where Pitt stops the race and he gets out to save his life. I think movie wise, that was great. That was showing that somebody came for him, especially when the kids saw the clip of him mangled and like, nobody's coming, mate. He's in the pits. No one's coming. I think it was really cool that he hopped out to pull him from the fire, and all he had was a slightly burnt palm of his hand. Oh, mama. So, but I think when he comes back from his hospital break and he sees the fans with, Brad, because he's like an underdog now. He brought that NASCAR swagger that I loved a lot in like that first third. He brings it back around. He comes in, and everyone has his name. Everyone's like, "Oh, Sonny Hayes, he's actually crazy. He's a mad dog. He's not winning, but he's doing his thing. He's got his mojo. He's not inhibited by the teammate. It's again the hangman thing. By not being held back or working with the team, he works really well. Maybe he should be the F1 driver and get rid of this kid that's not picking up the gears." So I do think that was a moment in the movie where they could have had, maybe the kid be like, whatever, you're the guy, man. I don't care anymore. And his ego's bruised. He's hurt. And Brad Pitt, as a mentor, as a father figure, is able to be like, I want you to be with me. There could have been better moments. I didn't think that they gave them enough screen time to hash it out. And that's why the Martha moment, which I'll now get into, when they're playing like the trauma bond game, and it's like, say one criticism about each other. And it's kind of funny. It's for laughs.
Uh-huh.
But when she's like, what age did your father die at? And they both go 13, and they go and look at each other. I was like, that's the Martha moment. That's forcing them to be like, maybe we're not so different after all. And I was kind of like that. That coupled with the actress who you mentioned from Banshee of Inisherin, when she's like, I have a husband. I bet I forgot to tell you that I leaned over to my buddy and I said, I bet they're divorced or going through a divorce, and Brad Pitt's gonna get in her pants by the end of the movie. My buddy was like, "Hey, shut the hell up, stop talking to me." But then later, when she's like, "Did I mention we're divorced?" I was like, like, because I saw that coming a mile away, and they hit all these moments that I think were really cliche, but they weren't elevating it, and they could have had more cliche moments, is what I'm saying, where Brad Pitt passes the torch a bit better. And again, Maverick was kind of lampooned for like, the old generation passing the torch that doesn't really pass the torch that well, but there could have been moments where they, pick each other up better. There could have been, again, the Joshua Pierce could have came to his rescue. And then also Brad Pitt could have maybe even said like, I want to share the spotlight with you. And again, maybe that's hand holding, but they didn't do it.
But this the problem, and maybe your idea would be better or like worse, who knows? But the problem
I'm a
is
screen
that
wide
it's not true to the characters, right? Like especially at that point, like when Brad Pitt's winning and everything's working, the first race when that guy comes back is the race he tanks him, and they have their big blow up that you mentioned, right? So
yeah, and that was good. I like the blow up, but they don't ever build. They never build.
It doesn't make sense at that moment, like for Brad Pitt to be like, "Hey kid," like, it's just not true to that character at all. And again, though, like the character that you created, right? Like they wrote it. If they wanted him to be a bit more of that, and that's why I guess like I find this ending a bit more perplexing. Is like, and I remember reading this stuff at the time, but like your kind of point on Maverick, where they say it's like, oh, it's passing the torch movie that doesn't really do a great job of passing the torch. I think it's a way better job of that than this one does, where like straight up he wins and the kid doesn't, which again, like I think I prefer in this state as the movie as is. But like again, it's like, okay, like the problem is that they're both plucky, cocky underdogs. That's the thing. He might have been a prodigy way back in the day, but he's still an underdog in this F1 world. And like, I guess on that, like, I don't know, again, I'm not at all going to speak for anybody, but like to steal Adriana's story that she mentioned from our mutual friend Evan that went to see the movie and described Brad Pitt as like an F1 terrorist. I think probably makes a lot of sense, because I'm like, is this really how fucking people drive in F1? Like, because he's doing like intentional things to manipulate rules and cause just enough of an accident to do this and that. And like,
I loved all
so
that.
much more. I did too. Like, again, as someone that's not a fan, doesn't know anything about it, I thought it was funny because it's like, we're not going to beat them at their own game. We have to play our game. And so that riding the line and skirting the rules, it makes it more interesting to me than if it's just like, again, if Kerry Condon's the whole dilemma is that like, I just got to figure out how to make the car go half a second faster. Like, I don't care. But if it's like, nah, dude, we're building a tank and they're out there, riding around on motorcycles or whatever. Like, okay, like you're building something different. So like all of that worked for me. And like, again, like I feel like the connective tissue is a little less important, and I think this is why I still like the movie as much as I did. Those moments, and specifically the racing and the character components of those moments and the story beats in those moments, all really worked for me. I really enjoyed all that. Again, like it was a heavy-handed line that really just fucking yanked me out of that moment. But
I enjoyed that line, to be fair. I
fucking thought it was so bad. This was in the same vein of like, but the thing is, this is like a hand-holding bit because, and I agree with Adriana. She said in our Mission podcast that the moment he goes torpedo tubes in the completely silent scene, it brings you back because it's the first word said in 15 minutes or whatever. I felt the exact same way about this. There was a moment when I'm like, why is it slow-mo? Is something bad gonna happen? Like I was kind of like, as soon as it started, I'm like, what's going on? And then
the slow-mo
I had the realization, oh, he's flying. And then I had like, like I had my own moment with it. And then the movie's like, oh, he's flying. And I was like, bitch, I fucking did this 30 seconds ago. And like I didn't need it. And it just like, and that I feel like is what made me laugh, is like, yeah, like we got it. And then you just told me just in case, and I felt like I didn't need that moment. It could have
Yeah.
been like much more impactful if it was just like implied. Like the moment itself is great. It's the line that clarifies what the moment is that really took me out. But like all
I'm
of
just
that
saying I
stuff
had to
was
take my
there.
glasses off because I was rolling my eyes so much. I'm like, oh, no one's gonna know how many times I was like, oh, brother, when I was just going,
Oh my god, you're
yeah,
gonna swing the head emotion
yeah,
around. But yes, like on a base level, again, that works, and that to me is why this movie is so good and worth watching. That stuff is good enough. There's enough of it there to justify, especially on an IMAX screen.
yes.
In terms of rewatchability, it is definitely nowhere close to me on Top Gun Maverick
I
because I
probably will
think,
never revisit this. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe,
other than in IMAX, like other than in
yeah,
IMAX, I would
maybe in
never want to go
IMAX,
again.
or maybe if like I had 5 F1 bros that were like, we don't hang out with you normally, but we want to go see this, and you're a movie guy. I'd be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'll see it again with you so I can see what your take is, because I found more joy talking to people outside the theater who were F1
Right.
fans than I did like talking about, or like people in the movie talking about F1. Like,
Yeah.
again, I'd say probably 10% of overall screen time is people talking about tires and the temperature of tires. And again, I'm glad that they could. No. Hear me out. I'm glad they could make an F1 movie digestible. Like if you're a big fan or whatever, I'm glad that they touch on the cornerstones. This made me want to like watch a big F1 race, not like a normal one, but maybe like the finale of F1, whatever the playoffs of F1 are. I would love to watch that
The
with this
Super
movie.
Bowl of the F1.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I would love to go into that, because even in this movie, whenever they would like halt a race where like again the kid crashes, Brad Pitt gets out and he goes to save the kid, I'm like, you just forfeit all those points. You got millions of dollars worth of engineering on the line. Like, a part of me was like, that was corny movie stuff that worked, but I kept thinking like they do race after race, and again, I'm not a race guy, so I was like, yo, are you guys effing the dog here? Because realistically, they placed first in that final race. Is that worth more than the 10 they threw leading up to that? Because like, I don't
But
know,
they
it's
didn't
entertaining.
throw those races, right? This
They
is what
threw
I
a
mean.
couple of them,
Well, but
like
okay,
like when
no,
they.
like the this is what, and again, speaking completely out of turn, but this is where I feel like you're knocking the movie, but I think you're also like you're also making the case of why it is the way it is. Like you were saying about these tires, the similar.
No,
it's
I'm not saying that was bad. I'm not saying that was bad.
Well,
I'm
but
saying it
you're
was,
saying like, oh, we spent 10 minutes about dialogue on tires. The reason you do that is the same thing in the other movies is the audience needs to understand the
yeah, which is
mechanics
they
of
do a
what's
good
going
job.
on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same thing in Top Gun when they're like, oh, the climb out and the G's and what that means. It's like all the pressure, and like they have whole
Yeah.
segments dedicated, huge chunks of the movie just to explain to us effectively how those things work. But
I'm
again,
saying it
my
was good. I'm just
understanding
saying it
of the
was.
logistics of the race is that it's so competitive. No guy goes from 20th to first in a single race because you start behind everybody. So the whole thing, it's like a Grand Prix in Mario Kart. Like you inch your way forward. No, I'm not kidding. You inch your way forward.
I
If
was
you
wondering.
finish in 10th, then you start the next race in 10th. And if you finish in 8th, then you start the next race in 8th. So that's what I mean about that build of the movie. And as I remember it, and I'm caveating, like maybe I fucking missed something or whatever, but like the goal was never to go like from last place to first in a single race. You had to inch your way there, and they needed to get at least one win or whatever, so Javier Bardem didn't like lose the company
The
or
company,
the
yeah.
whatever, how that works. But that was the whole incremental nature of that. So it's again like it's none of those races ever was I in the expectation until it got near the end that like victory is within grasp, because when you're talking about half a second being the thing that makes a difference,
Yeah.
starting 10 cars behind the guy, that half second's not going to matter.
And I love that they showed him being such an underdog who would like explicitly do well in that zone. But I just want to point out while we're on that level, did you find the corporate espionage angle like as a moviegoer? I wish they cut that and they added more scenes between the two main characters, because I still don't care about Joshua Pierce by the end of the movie.
It was such a weak push Like
Yeah.
specifically the moment that guy comes in and he's like, oh, he's one of my board guys. Like immediately the
You
guy is
knew.
like
Yeah.
unlikable and like Cam, like this guy clearly doesn't like
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
right? Like, and
Especially when
so,
Brad Pitt's like, I'm going to go back to work. You're
but
like,
once
that's going to come
again,
up.
and again, I feel like this is a failure in the script is that I didn't care. I don't even care. Like I'm struggling to care about our two main leads, the
That's what
two
I'm saying.
actual
Yeah.
racers, and that the actual big motivator, though, the pressure on the characters is Javier Bardem's corporate beef with this douchebag guy. And it's
Yeah.
like, again, when you're talking about stakes, and then like not from left field, like it makes sense, but it just feels like this kind of like very like angle at the end where he's like, hey, you want to scheme together to screw over Javier? And it's like, well, of course he's not gonna fucking do that. Like, what are you, stupid? Like, I realize the guy's a dick, but he's not a disloyal asshole. Like, that's never been established. Like, it
Yeah.
made no sense. It was such bullshit. And again, I think
Yeah.
it's what neuters the emotional connection to the movie is that you can't
I
ever
wanted,
make it
yeah.
if you never care about it. Like, sure, I didn't want the guy to screw over Javier, but I didn't care if he did. You know what I mean?
I wanted to root for like the Josh Pierce character. I wanted him to come around, and I do feel like they chose to progress Brad Pitt's reinforcement of how much of a good guy he was by proving the corporate espionage plot line. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
felt like they tacked on that to prove that he was a good guy. We, the audience, know he was a good guy. Never did we go, will he screw
Yeah,
him
you
over?
can't dangle that. Yes,
Yeah,
like it's
we already knew.
dishonest. Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's forced when it's like when you dangle a thread. Well, like, well, obviously the character's not going to do that. And it's like
Yeah.
a plot twist that you're like, well, this definitely isn't true because that would never happen. He wouldn't do that. And again, without any of the other establishing things, we just like it's like no, he wouldn't do that. The whole reason, like, you've established their history, their friendship, their connection. Like it's there enough that it's just at the 11th hour he's gonna be like, nah, fuck you, dude, like, and screw him out
Yeah.
of his company. Like,
Yeah, and
what?
well, and that's kind of the thing too. Again, like I think you and I largely agree on this. Maybe or different perspectives, kind of like in math when they're like explaining the answer. You've explained it using the theory provided, or your theory at least, and I'm the one that got the answer right, same answer as you. But I had so many more like beefs with it. I think because yeah, like I agree with a lot of that, and I do find I just wanted to care about the two main characters more. Like I think if this was two hangmen from Top Gun, the hangman Stan, would have loved it. But they really undercooked Josh Pierce's character when Sonny Hayes was such the cool, effortless guy. And again, like people who said Brad Pitt was phoning it in, I think there's such a magnetism and a skill to being effortlessly cool, and he nailed it. Again, like kind of like the Tom Cruise of it all, where it's like he's the veteran. It's nice to see a veteran guy just kicking ass and not apologizing, being who he is. I just wish they gave Josh Pierce, the character, more development, because by the end of it, he's still kind of cunty. He just kind of gives him a better nod or handshake, kind of like, you did it. And again, if they just maybe tweaked that corporate espionage, I think they just wanted that line in there, that corporate espionage. I gotta stop saying that, corporate espionage stuff. So they would have a guy in the final race who's drinking a Heineken Zero product placement. I'm like, why are you drinking a no alcohol drink at a stressful time? Like, I get this product placement; it's all over the marketing.
Oh,
But
dude, the ninja, holy shit.
oh yeah. Hey, don't get me wrong. I love product placement in movies where it makes sense, like an F1 movie or a NASCAR movie. But yeah, I just found it funny that they kept cutting to him to go, oh no, every time Brad Pitt did something epic in the
Yeah.
finale, or go, ha ha, when things are going bad.
And like, I don't hate that character enough to be
it's-
like
it's all just a little
relishing in
undercut.
his misery, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's like, oh shucks, and it's like, what the fuck? Like,
Well, yeah,
if I
you're like-
hated that character, if you really made me hate that character, watching him anguish like that would feel good. But
Yeah.
it just feels like, yeah, okay.
Like
He's
if
not
he was
happy.
instead
I
of
get
like
it.
flagging the car, right? You know how he's the one that flags them with like the redesign being on a like which is supposed to be a big deal, but I'm like I don't care. In fact, I almost forgot when they're like, he's the one that called the regulators. I was like, the what? Oh, the thing from the second act downfall when, Brad Pitt might leave the team and they can't race in the new car that's better. Like, there was so much of that I was just kind of like, oh yeah, like they're getting to the end. I can feel the second act finale itis here, where it's just like, we got to hit an all-time low. How do we do it? Because we've been, up and down, a good roller coaster ride the whole movie of winning races, losing them, accident. Like it's a good movie with trials and tribulations. But yeah, the screenplay and like a lot of the characters were undercooked. And at the end, again, like I said, it was like, we didn't really need it because we were already riding that roller coaster. And like, how do we make it go lower to go higher? Let's
Mhm.
throw this contrived thing in. I know, like it's easy to say that was a contrived thing in a movie. All movies could feel
Yeah.
contrived based on your perception of it. But yeah, I really wish they did more with the young buck because I want to harken back to what I said earlier. I think that first act was really solid on a screenplay level. They introduced the dynamics really well. The team, the girl who sucks at being a pit crew member,
Mhm.
where she bumps into him. And he's like, "Oh, sorry." He's like, "It's all right," because things are going good. He can let it go. But when she cost him 5 seconds on like a pit change, he like loses his shit, and Brad Pitt has to be the one being like in the ice bath, being like, "It's no big deal, lady. Like, don't beat yourself up. I'm a mentor. I'm a great dude. Chill." I think the whole movie is again a lot more closer to like an allegory for like corporate team building because you also have the pit boss guy who's like, "Look at my
Mhm.
resume. I'm the best," and Brad Pitt's like, "Whatever, dude. I meet people like you all the time. Like you're only as good as your last job," is something they say in Hollywood all the time. You have a big flop, you might not work for a few years. And I think that movie again it's good when you compare it to like a workplace more so than anything. The way it's run, the follies in the leadership, the again mismanagement from the top down, or the lack of connection in team building. And they do that with Brad Pitt doing the jog on the track because by the end of it, the whole pit crew is with him jogging. Well, again, Josh Pierce has his Apple Vision Pros on running in
Yeah.
the simulations. Like again, I do like the corniness of showing like new school versus old school, where he's doing the G-force training, doing a handstand on his bed with his neck, as opposed to like having a guy with a foot-pound monitor tugging it or whatever. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's good stuff here, but it does just ultimately when it was at its best, it was a team building exercise for F1 pit crews and again an allegory for workplace team building. I think they'd show this movie at some sort of like Fortune 500 type company to be like, this is why the management's failing. Okay, Chet from accounting, did you see that? Did you see how he dismissed her complaint? And if you want to be a good team builder, you got to bring people up when they're having a bad day. Change your verbiage. You know what I mean? Like, I was getting that vibe a little bit. And again, I like the movie
I was
overall.
to
I
say this.
just
All of what you said, and you're like 7 out of 10 is funny as hell to me. But I think that probably
yeah.
speaks to the IMAX and again the impact. Like
Yes.
we can only say so much about those racing scenes, and again, like some of the editing in that is phenomenal. Like I loved especially when they did these like wipes where they would turn the wheel in front of the camera, and then when it would turn back, it was the other driver.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
there was a lot of clever stuff with that I'm like, I wonder if they planned that or found that in the edit, but either way, like looked really good. I think for me, uh, again, it's an experience that I definitely, without hesitation or reservation, recommend you go see in a theater. You
Yes.
must see that. Like, I do think it is absolutely worthwhile to see and experience in a theater despite the shortcomings. And I think where it hurts on that rewatchability, why I don't think it will linger in terms of like a movie that like people will, harken back for the impressive technical filming aspects of it, but not in the movie itself. And I think that's because no matter all the noise and all of the other characters in Top Gun Maverick, the core of the story was our main two characters. And where this movie does not work is the core of the story is very scattered and it feels very divided. There's Brad Pitt and Javier, there's Brad Pitt and whatever the Pierce guy's name is, there's Brad Pitt and Carrie Condon, there's Javier and his corporate board. Like the movie I think gets lost in so much of this. And then like you said, there's the pit crew and the pit crew leader guy who doesn't take a serious amount of time in the movie, but it's just another friction point where the movie spends time and we got to brush with this and deal with this. And
And the
it's just
regulation board.
right. And it's just like it just feels like it's got all of these kinds of pieces to make it an exciting blockbuster thriller, but it just kind of left behind the real heart that really allowed me to care. And I think it just gets too scattered. And, again, like I feel like that really mostly comes down to the script.
Yeah, I think it's
But
excellent filmmaking all across the board. excluding the script, which is unfortunate because yeah, again, it had a lot of the makeup to be like a new Top Gun Maverick. And a lot of that's there again, like they're cousins, maybe they're bastard brothers. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're so
Yeah.
relatable in the approach and the style and the swagger, and the leads are very enjoyable to watch. Like again, I can't say how happy I was. Anytime Brad Pitt was like essentially mansplaining, I was like, yeah, like you're the guy. You're the GOAT. Like, you know it. You're the guy. Like he would just tell people what to do. They would go, that won't work because of my closed off opinions. Then he would go, trust me, and it would work out. And so, I mean, like, even though that's not, again, the greatest story point, I enjoyed it. But yeah, I think, like, I agree 1,000% with you. In IMAX, this is bang for buck, a great thing to movie, a great movie, a great product. I do though feel, yeah, they could have done something with the story specifically. Yeah, the leads, the two main characters with all the skin in the game felt so disconnected, you know, to the point where we're trying to really dissect why Maverick and Rooster worked. We never thought why they worked until we saw this movie. They just did. You watch this movie and you're like, how did Top Gun nail that part? Because like this
Well,
feels so
but you
soft.
made my last point on this is you made a line. Had a line earlier about like not the Top Gun Maverick is a Oscar play worthy script. I actually, and I've heard other interviews on this where they talk about that one because I think it was nominated the year it came out, and that
Yeah.
was like baffling to a lot of people. And to me, and why I think, and what I've heard in interviews where McQuarrie and I can't remember who the other person was in a completely separate interview, but talked about that script as like incredibly great. Not because it hits some very deep, complex emotional bit and a metaphor, or is like stereotypically what you would think is a great script. It's how it masterfully does exposition, emotion, high octane sequences, and blends that all together into a movie that, like I said, you and I have the experience. It works on us, and it's because of the effectiveness of that screenplay. And I'll definitely send you that clip to listen to in it's separate because it was fascinating. Because it's like, yeah, okay, it's not a talkie. There's no giant monologue where the character exposits about some deeply human emotion, and you're like, oh my god, like there's no Oscar clip moment like that in this movie. But that's not what makes this screenplay impressive. And I think this movie really highlights that part for me because it demonstrates the importance of it. Yeah, I still had a good time. It was still cool. The technical elements were all there. The emotion was not there. And that's why it becomes like, yeah, that was a really cool IMAX movie. But that's not going to be something I'm going to, like I said, rush out, and I don't care to get the home video of because it's not going to be the same. It doesn't bring those strong feelings about that I want to rewatch it again. So,
To summarize and kind of my closing thoughts are there's I think two camps. It's not about being an F1 fan or not. I think depending on how you feel about movies, you will see this movie and walk away wanting one movie or another. I think if you're like Shea, you'll walk out of this movie and really want to visit Top Gun Maverick and really appreciate what that got that this didn't. Or you'll be a little bit more cynical like me and you'll leave the theater and you'll go, I should have just watched Talladega Nights for the 15th time this year. Like, I liked a lot of this, and I almost think that my pitch, my high concept, big brain pitch here, would be to do a Talladega Nights with impeccable IMAX cinematography with that same crew, because I think like I tuned out so hard, I just wish it was either less serious or better written. And yeah, a parody where they have the same F1 level intensity and great like action bits paired with, a Will Ferrell type character being like, I'm on fire, and he's not. I don't know. It probably would ruin it. Probably be terrible.
yeah,
But
they're not giving $300 million to Will Ferrell to make that movie. I'll tell you that right now.
yeah, true enough. But I again, the sad part too is like I want to say I would recommend this F1 fans, but as I can attest, I feel like an F1 fan is going to be a little bored with the script, and then we're going to be on their phone the same way they are at home watching it on their boys' den or man cave TV, and they're just going to be bored on their phone. I would say the sad part is I think the biggest fans for F1 are probably just going to wait to come out on streaming, especially in this economy. Because yeah, they're already at home with their kids and drinking their Michelob Ultra, their Heineken Zeros, and they're not going to come out in force. And if they do, they're going to be the people in my theater that all have the same haircut, same shirt, and they're just going to be on their phones the whole time in the front row of an IMAX screening on opening night. So yeah, I would recommend this to anybody that loves, like, anybody like you that really loves the the McQuarrie Mission Impossibles, that loves the Tom Cruise old Hollywood actor, the guy who's a veteran who gets it right, who's a little down his luck. It's an underdog story about a professional driver, and it's corny as hell, but I think it works when it's at its best. Unfortunately, when it's not at its best, to me it just never reached those highs ever. Like it was dopamine hit, plummet, hit, plummet, 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 and then I go to the bathroom and I come back, hit, plummet, hit, and that's the 19-point breakdown of this movie for me. But yeah, I think I've said everything I could possibly say. I would recommend it to most movie-going audiences. I think it's a cut above a lot of blockbusters as far as the action and the cinematography. We talked about 28 years later. That's a big video, and we applauded that. Sidebar here. I know I said all I could say, and I'm rambling again, but I saw Mithrigan 2.0, and it was so competently shot, lit, directed, etc. I felt like I was watching an AI generated movie. But when you watch a movie like 28 years later, shot on iPhone with all these crazy camera angles, you go, "That's a real movie. It's not this formulaic beat for beat thing." And this movie is at its best when it feels like it's shot with so much intentionality and so much style and sauce. And when you see Brad Pitt acting the way he does, kind of effortlessly cool, an AI generated video can be that effortlessly cool. Prove me wrong. Google VO3 or whatever. But yeah, I wish the story met the movie on the visual tone that it was throwing down, because it was an IMAX glory, but a story I could not get behind. And yeah, that's all I could really say about it. I know we're very similar on that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like basically, like I said, see this in theaters. If you're remotely curious about it, that's really the only like way I would recommend it. Like you said, you made your Talladega Nights bit. I promise you, I've seen it in IMAX. I've seen Talladega Nights. I will get the urge to watch Talladega Nights at home before I get the urge to watch this at home.
I also said that too, because we talked about seeing A Complete Unknown, and how, Walk Hard ruined the biopic
Mhm.
formula for you. And I think being a movie about racing and having cultural differences, an American NASCAR driver in Europe, not getting along with his partner who has a different racing style, like, the parallels are there. I think Talladega Nights, if you're a huge fan like I am, it's really hard to separate the cliche. And again, I don't know if there's been a parody of Top Gun that's been significantly renowned. Like, there's not been a fight. Has there been a fighter jet parody movie that lampoons Top Gun so well that it ruined Maverick? I think Maverick was so good, if there was, it would rise above. And I think with this
Well,
movie,
certainly not since Maverick. I can't even think of one that like really hardcore lampooned the
I,
first one
I
either.
mean, yeah, I mean, like, what was, like, was it Hot Wings or something with, or like, wasn't there a Charlie Sheen one?
Yeah, there's
Uh,
something about it. I don't
I'm
remember.
just
I
saying.
feel like that was some Marine movie. I don't remember if it was
Yeah,
Top
I
Gun
just I just feel
specifically.
like Talladega Nights kind of did the genre so well on, like, the sports drama, that it's tough. And Top Gun Maverick and Top Gun in general isn't a sports drama. It's a military propaganda piece that gets you hyped up to enlist. Where this is like, I'm not joining F1 because I'm down on my luck. It's still quite a luxury to be a world renowned race car driver. And yeah,
It's a miracle that you and I agree but disagree on the same thing so wildly. Like I like your math equation bit. You like I did a big formula and I got to the correct answer. You also got to the correct answer, but you took the complete opposite way that I did and still ended up in the right spot.
Yeah, I feel
No,
like you're like, show your work, and I have nothing but the right answer. And then the
well,
teacher
you
asks
said
me, and I'm
all of
like,
that, and I'm like, I
"Whoa."
disagree with so many of these bits, but we agree at the outcome. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, well,
I
that's
think
why we
that's
have a
it for me.
podcast. Yeah, that's why we have the podcast. So,
Exactly.
as always, I'm grateful I get to be here and yap about movies and complain about theater goers on their phone.
Me too, buddy.
Well, yeah, it's a friendship made for this. So, anyways, on that note, I just want to say thanks for listening, and for the love of God, go see F1, make your own opinion. But while doing so, do not bring your iPhone 15 Pro Max or whatever, whip it out with the baby monitor, and expect other people to be cool with it because you're a father. I just want to say thanks for watching. And yeah, if you're concerned about your children at home, either bring them or stay home and watch it on streaming. Do not pull your
bring
iPhone
them. What are
out.
you, crazy, dude? Hire a babysitter and shut your phone off. Thank you and good night.